Hey viewers, it's Dan Gray from Amplify here. We've got a absolute musical icon to chat with today. He's the lead singer of an incredible band called Deep Sea Arcade. He's also been deeply immersed in the music industry for over 2 decades, and he's collaborated with some huge artists. Please welcome Nicholas Mckenzie, all the way from Sydney, Australia.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you for having me.
No worries. And to start things off, we've got a bit of show and tell. What have you got for
Yep.
us, Nicholas?
Okay. I got this knight's head that I got at the markets. And when you open it up, it's got these drinks,
That's wild.
shot glasses. And then, can you hear that?
Actually, I can't, to be honest. What tune is it playing?
I don't know. I think it's playing Granite City Girl by Deep Sea Arcade. No, it's not. Um, so I got that. And then um I also got DJ Shadow, The Private Press. This record, I love this record. So I thought I'd talk about that.
Yeah, why is it important to you? Private,
Um, The Private Press, was it?
private press. Yeah.
I think it's very influential to me because it's a record that DJ Shadow sort of his practice is sampling lots of different types of music, a lot of psychedelic rock and roll, a lot of cinematic stuff like soundtracks, and then heavy grooves. And I like the way that he picks and chooses. So he'll take from different genres. He might take a guitar line from the 80s, then he might take some kind of like, hammer dulcimer from a cinematic soundtrack, and then he might have like a sort of like phased out guitar solo and brings them all together into the same place. And I think when I realized that that was a possibility, that all those different elements could work together in one place, really inspired me with my songwriting. It meant that I
Interesting.
wasn't sort of limited to just one genre. I could pick and choose and take a little bit from everything to sort of, especially on the production side. So once you've sort of written a song, um, you've written it in terms of the chords on your acoustic guitar or your whatever instrument you're using, then that process of creating a mood board for what you think is the most appropriate way for the song to be received. I was like, oh wow, so I can do that. I don't have to just, if it's sort of like a 60s melody, it doesn't necessarily have to have a 60s sounding instrumental. It could be like an instrumental that was partly from an 80s new wave rock song, or, you know, uh, I guess a boom bap like hip hop track or whatever.
Do you sample a lot of artists when you're like making music?
Not necessarily. I do when I'm writing, yeah, I do actually. Like sometimes I'll go on YouTube and I'll take like the drums from a Bee Gees song and write a track over it. But then inevitably I'll have to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But it's a good starting point. Anything that helps you jump off, I think, is great. You know, finding the chords to a track, looking up the chords and playing them, and then writing a fresh melody over the top is also a really great thing. There's so many different ways to approach songwriting. It's endless. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah, I just it's just exciting every time. You kind of like, oh, what what method will I use to inspire myself today to write a song, I guess.
Yeah, and like I feel like music, like going back to that most basic level, like music is such a like healing thing. So like, do you remember the first time you played music and you're like, or listened to music or just kind of interacted with it and you're like, oh wow, like this is actually something that's really impactful for me? Like, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. My parents weren't really big music listeners. My uncle, really big music lover, huge record collection. But my parents did have some really amazing albums. Like I think they had like 4 or 5 albums that they would just repeat all the time.
Yeah.
Um, that was like the Beatles and the Smiths actually were those two records. Revolver by the Beatles and The Queen is Dead by the Smiths were on high rotation when I was a kid. And I think that they have a massive influence on me, those two albums, and the Kinks as well. Um, I always think of those songs, and I think that when I am looking for inspiration, putting on the Beatles or the Kinks or the Smiths is always a good starting point.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it was definitely listening to like in a speaker in my room, like as a young person for the first time, just like hearing that and
Mm.
just being like it's so transportive, that music. It's just like it takes you to a whole nother
Mm.
place, and that's what's so special about it. And
Yeah,
so
definitely.
so like Deep Sea Arcade, you kind of it's like kind of pop, it's kind of psychedelic, but how would you describe the music you make in terms of the sound?
Yeah, I think that it it has its roots in pop music, but I do think that it had I think that that DJ Shadow record actually works for this question too because yeah, although it's not sampling, although I don't sample, I do almost sample because I will go and try and work a part. You know, I'll give it a treatment that is particularly trying to sort of emulate another sound from another record often. Um, so I think there is an element of electronica in there as well. So I would say, yeah, like psych, rock, electronica would be maybe the slashies that I would say, if that
Yeah, okay,
works.
fair enough. And so it's been an interesting period. Like you've kind of taken a bit of a break from music and you're kind of like starting again in many ways. Um, and I noticed you've been collaborating with Jay Watson. How important is that to you and how did that come about? It was like that's like an amazing opportunity.
It really was. The collab so I met Jay a couple of years ago. I was working as a tour promoter and I did his tour with him and it was a lot of fun. And I met him a couple of times during that period and got to chat with him then. More recently, I was looking for equipment to record my album at home. I had decided that I wanted to do the home recording thing, but do it properly. And so I was sort of collecting a lot of equipment online and just looking through different websites that sell, you know, pro audio gear. And I was looking for a D12 and a D19. So those microphones are kind of like the famous kick drum and overhead microphone that the Beatles use. And on my kind of journey looking for that, I found a listing that was under Yaj Nostor, which is Jay Watson's name backwards, and that immediately, you know, I love anything that's a bit like that, any kind of backwards kind of like puzzle or so, yeah. So it immediately kind of resonated with me, and I was like, that's got to be Jay. Like, there's no way that it's just like it's too much of a coincidence. And so I reached out to him in the DMs and I was like, you know, asked him about the listing and asked if it was him, and he said yes, and we continued to talk about recording, and he gave me lots of advice on different pieces of equipment. Actually, he actually ended up giving me this one as well, another show and tell item. But it was yeah, like this, I think that we're both very interested in the same, the same influences, a lot of different, often talking about, um, like Radiohead or Blur or
Oh yeah, yeah.
different ways of MGMT, like different artists that we like and their recording methods. So yeah, so that conversation went on, and yeah, and eventually I sort of plucked up the courage to that fateful question, that fateful thing that all musicians do is like, can I send you my demos? Which is it's a hard thing to, I think it's a hard thing for to do, but he was very responsive and said yes, and I sent him through probably about like 42 tracks,
Oh
like a
wow.
SoundCloud link. And then so we just and he didn't he took the time to listen to it. So I wasn't sure if he was going to be involved at all. Like I would have been happy with a little bit of like maybe even tips would have been great. But then yeah, he did come back and say, let's record the album, and it's been a really, really, really fun process. I've really enjoyed it. It's it's interesting because you collaborate with lots of people over the course of your career, and um, when it clicks, it's really apparent. It seems like it just doesn't. It's not hard work. The in most cases, um, when you when there is a creative synergy, it's sort of you tend to be excited by whatever that person brings to the table. And I think that is a huge part of collaboration as well, is trust as well. I think trust
Yeah.
makes a collaboration a lot of fun. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
did you like have like a conscious conversation about like, oh yeah, let's collaborate, or were you just like, oh, I've got some demos, would you potentially be interested in collaborating, or how did it come about, like the that idea of collaborating?
Yeah, I think I did. I think I asked that question. I was like, how busy are you at the moment? Would you potentially be interested in playing drums? And because he's a multi-instrumentalist, so I really thought it would be an amazing opportunity to to have him play the instruments, especially the rhythm section on the album, because I've seen him live, and God, like he's a powerhouse, and
Yeah.
in terms of drum, as a drummer, like you're a drummer, right? Like you know what I'm talking about. Um so yeah, so yeah, that was the question, and he was like, listen, I kind of do, I do the whole thing. I'd be happy to play drums, bass, guitar. I'll mix the record if you want. So yeah, so he ended up doing, we're up to it. I just sent him, I think, the 12th song this morning, actually, that we've been working on. So yeah, so he's done 12 songs. He's played on quite a number of the tracks too. I would say probably like over half, um, if not more. So yeah, it's been a really cool process. And every time, I get the mixes back, it's been really, really cool. Always a beautiful touch of something, like whether it's like uh like a beautiful kind of 70s style chorus on a piano, or like spring reverb on a tambourine or something like that, like just like or a really beautiful flanger on a fill, like stuff that you go like, yeah, like that's awesome. What a beautiful touch you just added to that song.
Yeah, it's incredible. Sounds like a
Hmm.
really, I'm like really excited now to hear this uh new album.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I hope you like it when you hear it.
So, like as an individual, do you have any practices that like help you be creative? when you're, especially when you're like collaborating and whatnot?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think I think I think positivity is one of the most important ones, and trust. I think trust and positivity are, you kind of don't want to go into a collaboration without those two elements there. I think that has to be there to make it an enjoyable process for both parties or multiple parties. Um, so yeah, I think those are the two things. And then I think that also the the ability to let go as well. I think I think over the years I've clung to things really, like if you have an idea and you think it's great and you cling to it a lot, you stifle yourself, and you sort of stifle the people who might bring something really cool to the table too. I think you need to like just relax and let people do what they will. If you've invited them to the collaboration table, you got to just like let them run wild and trust that they'll do a good thing. And I think that that's been my biggest lesson, I think. Yeah, is those just bringing that energy. But I think in terms of any tricks, like yeah, like I think that I do enjoy like bringing like a groove idea and a vocal idea that sort of tends to tends to be a really nice little sketch of what you might potentially work on, and then they're going to inevitably bring something else to the table. But starting fresh is really good too. Like just starting completely from scratch is another really great method. Yeah, there's so many ways to approach it.
Okay, cool. Interesting. So, in terms of the live show, you're playing. What was the last time you played live? Was it a while ago? Like, is it...
I think it was like I think it was in South America in 2018. I think it was a
Okay,
while
so
ago.
not too bad. Like, it's
Yeah, it's not been ages and ages, but it's been a fair amount of time. So yeah, like yeah, it was like it's funny doing the performance thing. I was like, oh God, you pick up the guitar and play a song all the way through, you know, like playing a track all the way through. It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of hard to do. Um, yeah, so yeah, just been doing a lot of practice, a lot of jamming, doing a lot of jamming with musicians who are actually in other cities. The internet is amazing for meeting musicians and working with musicians, as I discovered with Jay. I've been rehearsing three members for an upcoming show in Melbourne. So we've been doing it all online. You know, guys will send me, um, you know, them playing drums, their drum takes over a similar like over video call. So,
okay.
you know, it's like rehearsing on, you can have rehearsals online now, which is very cool. Obviously, we'll do it in person, but that's a nice thing to be able to do with people online, because it means you get into rehearsal and it's a good feeling because everybody knows the parts and you've already discussed all the nitty-gritty of the parts, you know?
Yeah, so you normally send each other like a piece online, and then do you do it via Zoom, or is it like what's the process again?
Yeah, so a lot of the time a lot of the time I'll go through the guitar parts. Nick Weaver and I used to go make videos for the band members of how to play the songs live. So we pick up a guitar and sort of show, like record the actual the voicings of the chords and stuff like that, and sort of where they sound good to be played on the neck, or um things like that. Not like as a just as a blueprint that makes it easier for a musician to learn the track, so that there's not so much like guesswork. So normally sort of start with a video like that as an outline or a guide, send it across to a musician. Obviously, I can't do that with drums because I'm not a drummer. But but the stems of I have all the stems of the tracks now, like of all the recordings I've ever done. So I can send the isolated drum part to a drummer, and the drummer can become acquainted with it and bring their own thing to it too. But we try and stay pretty true to the recordings, um, and then leave that kind of improvisation side to like the transitions between the songs or extensions of the songs. That's sort of where that's sort of where it gets really fun to jam with musicians who are coming into the project.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
so what does a good live show look like to you? Like, do you have a vision in mind when you're going into a gig?
Yeah, I mean, probably like I think nerves are kind of important from experience. You kind of want to be pretty nervous. And I reckon a good show, you don't want to necessarily have like a great rehearsal before the show. If you have like a really good rehearsal before a show, I think everyone gets a little bit too relaxed on the actual show date. I think
Okay.
you sort of want to have like a slightly stressful rehearsal. Um, and then when you play, then you're on your A game when you play live. Um, Yeah, but I think a good show, yeah, like there are a lot of elements that are out of your control as a musician, as you know, like you can't really in some cases you can't control every variable. You can't control what the sound guy's doing. You can't control the mix. You have to again trust that that things will um go well. And I think that that's exciting. I think that's what the element of excitement for that the crowd feed off as well is that like this could be a great show or it could be a medium show or it could be everyone's sort of on the seat, the edge of their seat, I think, in the live performance thing, because there is it's like there's a possibility that everything can go wrong, but in most cases it won't.
That's cool. That's a really unique answer. Like, I wasn't expecting you to say like being nervous is a good thing, but like it can definitely like fuel the fire in many ways and kind of lead to some
Yeah.
powerful moments. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the thing. I think that the fight or flight thing does make for good performances. If you're not feeling that, then you don't have any kind of like, I guess it's the fuel that you're sort of riding, I think there.
Okay, cool. So, final question to wrap things up. Any goals or important things on your bucket list that you want to achieve in the future?
Um, I think I've been thinking about this. I in the past I've taken a lot of time to write records. Like I have a lot of songs written, but the actual like the recording part of it takes a bit of time. Like there's 6 years between most deep sea arcade records. There will be, so that feels like a long time, especially considering how many songs I've actually written. Um, and and yeah, so working with Jay, he's very fast. He gets things done really, really fast. And and I suddenly realized that that was a possibility. Like you can record like a record in less than 6 months. It doesn't need to take 6 years. So that was that was actually what I was like, I'm going to make sure that the next record comes out much quicker. I think that's my goal for the future. I want to release this record, early next year, early to mid next year, with the singles coming off it early, and then maybe the release around the middle of the year. And then it'd be great to try and follow that up the year later. Like that'd be a great goal to achieve.
Just get the King Giz boys on it.
Oh yeah, man. Get like 10 albums out.
Nah, that sounds awesome, but and so up next we've got a performance from Nick himself, and the song is Outlands, right? Or
No,
Granite
it's
City.
Granite City.
Granite
So
City.
it's Granite City, which we're releasing a remix of Granite City with that Raindrop's done on November 2nd. So I thought that would be a good one to do a kind of stripped back version for you guys.
Writings on the wall, she's not there at all. She walked out the door, down the stairs and through the hall. No one saw her go, no one saw her at all. Think they saw her ghost, 'cause they left one in my home. Ooh, ah, watching the world, watching the world with the Granite City girl. Ooh, ah, watching the world, watching the world with the Granite City. Saw her in a dream, place I'd never been. Face just seemed familiar. When she turned, she's facing me. I wonder what she knows, I wonder where she goes. She might see the faces and the places down the road. Now I'm moving on, my mind is not my own. Will be soon when I get better. Now I'm moving on, my mind is not my own. Will be soon when I get better. Ooh, ah, watching the world, watching the world with the Granite City girl. Ooh, ah, watching the world, watching the world with the Granite City. Ooh, ah, watching the world, watching the world with the Granite City. Ooh, ah, watching the